the AslyumConnect secretary. So that's a little bit about him.
Sorry, I was
There you
trying
go.
to figure out how to unmute it. I'm not used to this one.
Yeah,
I'm
I
Alex.
know you're here.
I am the secretary on the AslyumConnect team. I coordinate monthly meetings, set up meetings between the co-director and other team members, and also work on some projects as needed, such as curating free resources for our catalog.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alex. Anyone else? Not everyone always shows up on the participants, but okay, yeah, I see Sammy now is on the call as well. If Sammy and Megan, if you guys want to just start presenting earlier, introduce yourselves, you guys are more than welcome to. I know you're scheduled for 9:15, but we can certainly start with you guys.
Sounds good. It looks like my video might not be working.
Yeah, I see like,
no.
Wait, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Well, for everyone who doesn't know, this is Sammy. She's a co-founder of Hand Up, and we're very lucky to have her. She'll, I'm sure, give you a brief intro to Hand Up, but it's a very, very cool organization and something that I heard about a couple of months ago, and I've been super impressed with it. So I'm very excited that you were able to join us, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this and see so many people tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and, is my screen share?
Yeah, so there should be a button on the bottom of the screen that says share screen. It's green, at least on my screen it's green. So it'll say like invite participants, share screen.
Perfect. All right, is that working?
Yep, mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, enter full screen. Perfect. Yeah. So, like I said, my name's Sammy, and I'm one of the co-founders of Hand Up, and was asked to share more specifically just about the role of technology in social change. And before I dive in too much to Hand Up and explaining what we are and how we got started, I wanted to share for you all my kind of personal journey and how I've come to this work. And really for me, it's all started with compassion and wanting, recognizing I grew up actually, giving back a lot. I took care of my grandfather growing up. I was always very involved, and I learned very early on the importance of giving back and how much that could give to me. And so I wanted to start with this definition of compassion. It's the feeling to suffer together, or the feeling that arises when you're confronted with another's suffering and feel motivated to relieve that suffering. And the first real call that I had into this work was going to West Africa and working in Ghana, in the Volta region. And I had learned about microfinance, and I had been really interested in this concept, giving small loans to individuals, and really particularly the intersection of, compassion and giving back, but also marrying that with business discipline and entrepreneurship and building in sustainability. And so I started my journey meeting people like Yao. She's a fishmonger, so she salts and smokes fish and sells them, and she learning directly from people experiencing poverty has been the greatest teacher for me of building social change companies and building an impact, and learning from her just about the challenges she had, very low margins of being able to provide for her and her family. And this idea really sparked me to learning more about her business and businesses like her, really sparked me to want to get more involved in microfinance, more than just the internship I was doing at that time. And I, before I knew it, was interviewing, 50 or more people like Yao, and ended up starting my own company there. And in that process, I was able to grow, and we had before we knew it, we had 14 full-time staff, and we're in multiple different regions of Ghana, and really had a beautiful organization we built. We're serving over 1,000 households. But at the end of the day, I continue to be confronted by this statistic that there are 1.2 billion people globally living in extreme poverty. And here with my team, we had served about 1,000 families. And, while this impact was really incredible to see what a small team of people can do when you really focus and want to build an impact, I still saw this huge need to take what I had learned and make it more scalable. And so fortunately at that time, I'll sort of fast forward through a lot of other things that happened, but during that time was approached by a local bank in Ghana, and they effectively bought out our portfolio. They're a Kiva partner, very reputable, and suddenly took a harder look and said, I really wanted to be more at the intersection of technology and poverty alleviation. And during my time abroad, I was learning a lot about just so many other innovative ways that my fellow peers and entrepreneurs in the global development space were using technology. So there's mobile payments, more and more were being adopted. Incredible things happening in Kenya and all across the developing world using mobile payments. I saw entrepreneurs being innovative using technology for solar power in very remote areas. I also saw, coming back to this real draw for me, which was building compassion, I saw things like charity water really getting donors activated and engaged in online giving. Also, of course, very relevant to me was Kiva in the microfinance space, and saw how they were able to impact, now millions of people across the globe using technology to bridge these worlds. And as I was, thinking about where to go next, I started to really, take a hard, think about where to go. And of course, San Francisco is where so many of these technologies are based, and decided to move here and look for what was going to be next. And in that process, I was suddenly confronted with poverty here, poverty here in the US, and seeing people fishing for food through the streets, and recognized that, I didn't have to fly across the globe to be making an impact. That there were, 7,000 people just in San Francisco experiencing homelessness in a given year, and 3.5 million across the country. And, while I saw all of these innovations internationally, when I looked at human services, what are we doing here in the US? Really, I didn't see the same type of examples of technologies really focused on homelessness and poverty here in the US. Just a couple other statistics. I was, as I was digging and trying to understand more, there's only 1 in 6 people shelter beds for people who need them. Also very relevant to this community. I know that you're very focused on LGBTQ, that 29% of the homeless population in San Francisco identifies. And so I just saw this huge need, not only to provide more resources, but also to really, again, going back to this idea of bridging compassion between people who want to help and people who, are in need of support. And it was in that journey that I met Rose Broom, who's my co-founder of Hand Up. She had this idea, walking on a cold night, seeing a woman sleeping on the sidewalk with a thin blanket, and said, why in a society with so much wealth and innovation, why do we still have people sleeping on our streets? And really, we just had such a clear vision together and of what we had wanted to do. And so we came together to really solve this question: what do you do when you want to help someone experiencing homelessness, but you don't know how? And really specifically, kind of back to my original, where I've been focused is how can we use compassion to, technology to build more compassion for homelessness. And so we launched Hand Up. This is what our homepage looks like today. It's a website where you can give directly to specific individuals experiencing homelessness. So you can see we've had some pretty incredible impact in just 2 years, raised over $1 million to support over 1,500 individuals in our community. And so you can read on our website stories of specific people like Brian. Brian is raising money for tools so he can be equipped for work, and you can see how much money he's going to need. He's also, affiliated with a partner organization that is actually helping him get this profile uploaded. So as a donor, you know that if you give $20 to Brian, it's actually his case manager at Project Homeless Connect who's actually going to help him use those funds, so 100% is going toward the cause. And what's really beautiful is one of the first requests of our members was wanting to communicate back and forth with donors, saying, who are these people? And similarly, donors wanted to leave messages for the people they were giving to. So this is a message from a donor, William. He says, keep up the fight for you and your son. I believe in you. People care about you. And then Mike here can actually respond. So we can respond if he has a phone. He can text back, or he can write an email update, or his case manager can help him respond. And he says, having hope is priceless, and what you've given me is that hope in my life again. Another way that people can, show their compassion using Hand Up is through Hand Up gift cards. So these are denominations of $25 that a donor can purchase from our website, and they can give directly to someone on the street. And, this, again, was really in response to our community and trying to understand the needs of our community, and people saying, I want to help, but what do I do when I'm on the street and I don't know how to respond to someone asking me for support? So this is a way that you can give to people on the street, and the individual then takes it to one of our partner organizations to redeem it. So it's not redeemable for cash or just at any store, but really a tool for engaging people. To date, we've seen some incredible impact. I already captured a few of these statistics, but we've been able to bring Hand Up to 9 cities. With 20 different partner organizations who help their community members sign up for profiles, get access to gift cards, and a number of other things. And we've had almost 4,000 words of support, like you saw that one before from Brian, sent through our site. Most of our impact has been focused in housing. That's what most people fundraise for on Hand Up, followed closely by food, and then technology. And, through this process, of course, we're so excited about what we've accomplished, but we're also, there's so much more that we can do, and we're excited of where we'll take this in the future. And one of the big things that I like to bring up to people's awareness is not only the numbers and the challenge of, supporting all the people who need help, but the bigger challenge, which is our perception as a society and the way that we think about homelessness. This is a really powerful statistic done by the Department of Psychology at Princeton. They said the homeless are not recognized as human relative to other groups. They're actually perceived more like objects. So in this study that they did, they found that we're not even perceiving each other as human. We've started to numb ourselves. And I see technology as such a powerful tool that can at least help bridge this conversation between people with homes and people without homes. And we're already seeing this on our site. This is Julianne, who has been fundraising on Hand Up for over a year now. She's reached several big goals for herself. And this is an update that she wrote that I just think is so beautiful. She said, "Today doesn't feel as desperate or sad as days past. I often wonder how we are going to get everything taken care of to meet our goals. I'm usually left feeling stressed, alone, defeated. Instead, on September 1st, When I saw your donations, I took my daughter outside to enjoy the sunny day and to join her in smiling a lot. I was freed from worry, knowing we are lucky, not alone. You have guided me forward and given me hope. Thank you so much. We'll find our way to achieving our goals. And, this really just says so much that you get so isolated when you fall into hard times. And, technology can be such a powerful tool for connecting people who want to help and who, don't know where to send their support. So we really, really believe in that. And I'd love to, answer questions and be able to hear kind of your thoughts and how you all are looking at technology and social impact.
Thank you so much, Sammy. That was really informative and very interesting. I'd like to open it up to everyone. Does anyone have a first question for Sammy? Or I know I have questions, so I can go for it. But anyone else want to start off the questions? No? Okay. Well, I can go first. I actually have a question about your business model. So I saw that Hand Up decided to become a B Corp instead of a nonprofit, and I just think it's a really interesting decision. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your decision process on that and why you decided to make that decision.
Yeah, of course. So Hand Up, we were looking at different business models, different ways of structuring ourselves, and really one of the big vision that we've had is wanting to be able to scale and recognizing that this is a problem that, affects 3.5 million people in the US, but it's also a global challenge. And we were looking at, pros and cons of for-profit versus nonprofit, and really just, all of the models for scale and for, taking a technology product and being able to iterate have really been in the for-profit arena. And so when we discovered the B Corp, it was just this perfect kind of in between where we could leverage the ability to raise funds from investors and attract talent and be able to scale, but also have that legally binding social mission, which is, of course, crucial to what we're doing.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I think actually Alex just posted a question in the group chat. How big is your staff now, and what kind of media exposure have you had?
Great, thank you. And for some reason, I'm not seeing. So if you can just tell me, because I'm for some reason not seeing.
The chat. The chat is like on the bottom button. It should be right next to share screen. You might have to stop sharing your screen to see it.
Okay. Pause share. There we go.
Okay.
Am I back?
I can still see your screen.
Oh, your screen is paused.
I think maybe if you hit it again, the share screen button.
Stop share. There we go.
There you go. Yeah, perfect.
I'm not the engineer on my team. I'm the business development person, so in operations.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So our team is 7 people right now, and we Megan Murphy is our awesome marketing person who leads a lot of our media. Luckily, though, for us, actually, majority of our media has been inbound. So we've been able to get press from CNN, CBS, BBC, a lot of awesome national and global publications. I think really because, again, like I said at the beginning, there's so few other organizations focused on this intersection of technology and homelessness. And homelessness has been, LA and Seattle have both declared states of emergency on it. There's a lot of public attention on this issue, and I think that's driven a lot of people to us, fortunately. Does that answer your question?
Alex? I think it does. To me, it did.
Great.
Yeah, he said yes.
Perfect.
Does anyone else have a question for Sammy? Well, I had another question. if no one else wants to go. I saw that you started piloting in 2013, and I was just wondering, since AslyumConnect is in a piloting phase, if you have any advice for an organization that's piloting extremely vulnerable population. If you have any advice or like timeline or the size of the pilot and like when to scale to additional cities.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's always like easier in theory, like, oh, when we get to this point, we'll scale, and then you feel it out. But I think number one for us, like we started immediately talking to people who experience homelessness and really drew a lot of our inspiration from them. And it was in those early conversations hearing, okay, how do you want to be represented online? How do you want to tell your story? What would be the most useful to you? And we continue to hear over and over again that really one of the most important things was flexibility. That, people, they already are getting, they're getting help getting into housing, they're getting help getting into other programming, but there's all these things that fall through the cracks. And when you have to go to 5 agencies to get help, you waste a lot of time. So they really liked that Hand Up was for them. Like, I can say what I need. And so I think early in your, process, building in those opportunities to get feedback from your community. You don't have to be a researcher with a ton of background. You can just structure some basic survey and just get those channels open. And then as you grow, those people are owners now. They really feel bought in, and we still have people who we signed up on day one who continue to give us feedback and make sure we're staying relevant and staying focused. On when to scale, for us, we really believe that we're going to have a bigger impact if we're sustainable. And so a big question for us has been when we know we've sort of figured out our revenue model. And so that's been a really crucial piece for us in deciding when to scale. And we've iterated, we started really focused. We just had an optional support fee. So donors could give, $5 tip when they donate to someone's profile. And we've seen so far 90% of our donors have done that. So it's worked. But we also have then tested other models. And as we've tested more, that's really what's given us the key indicators that, we have the traction we need to scale.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any last questions? I know it's 9:32.
So we'll keep this very brief, but I was just wondering, what is perhaps the biggest concern you hear from investors or the community, and how do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We get investors we've worked all across the board. Initially, we were like, oh, social impact investors, like that's who we need to target. And surprisingly, we really didn't find that many who are focused on early stage. It's a really big challenge. There's such a relative to the bigger pool of, regular venture capitalists, there's a very small pool focused on impact, and they are able to be more choosy with where they make their investments, and they're able to set a lot higher standards. So they often just don't have the risk appetite. They're not putting as much money in, to get those big wins early. And so we found the traditional investor community to be more receptive, and that's where most of our very early stage capital came from. I think it's interesting. We try to really have a clear story for our revenue model and for our impact projections. And, depending on which audience you're talking to, you focus on a different part. But the PBC really, having that public benefit corp just clearly says we are a mission-driven company. And I think that weeds out anyone who isn't behind that being part of our vision. The other thing I'll say quickly on that is just, as a social impact company, if you can have your social mission and your revenue model work really seamlessly together so that, we, for example, we don't make money unless we're delivering more funds and resources to people experiencing homelessness. Our model, the two things are dependent on each other to work. And so if your model is just so clear that like, yeah, if we're making money, it's because we're making impact, then it makes it a lot easier to tell your story no matter what investor audience that you're talking to.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Any last questions before we let Sammy go? Going once, going twice. No? Okay, well, thank you so much, Sammy. That was really, really helpful and definitely really interesting to me as co-founder of AslyumConnect. So
yeah, of course.
Thank you so
Best
much.
of luck and enjoy the rest of the.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye. You too. Okay. And now, guys, I'll share my screen with everyone so I can figure out. Can you all see my screen now? Yeah? Okay, great. So this was just the agenda that I had for today for us. So as you can see, so Sammy from Hand Up just spoke, and then I thought I was going to start with introducing just the concept of socially impactful technology, and I guess we can do that now, right before our next guest speaker. Just give me 1 second because he's emailed me. So. And I actually think our next guest speaker might be with us. Robert, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So everyone, this is Robert Treatham. He is the founder and president CEO of Asvia, which I'm sure he'll give you a nice introduction to. And Robert, if you don't have any questions for us, I'll actually let you go ahead with your presentation.
Oh, okay. I thought it was at 9:45.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm a bit early then.
Yeah.
So how do I share my screen?
There should be a button on the bottom of your screen. It's green and it says share screen right in the middle.
Okay. I think I got that. And then is that showing for everyone?
Yep, I can see it.
All right. That might be better. How's that? Is that the full screen?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you. I'm happy to be here. I wasn't sure what to expect. I've prepared an introduction to Asvia and some of our work. We are a geospatial software company based in Philadelphia, and we do a broad range of work, but all of it connects to geography, data science, and research. So I thought I'd walk through a little bit about the company in general, and then introduce you to a few of our projects, and then leave things open to questions. We're about 50 people, largely based in Philadelphia, about half of whom are software engineers, and the other half are a mix of user experience designers, data analysts, project managers, and other folks. We are all about building advanced geospatial data analysis, largely for the web. We're what's known as a B Corporation. It sounds like some of the other folks here are interested in social enterprises, so we are certified by B Labs as a B Corporation. We've had that status for about 5 years now, and are just coming up on our third recertification this next year. For those of you who haven't heard of B Corporations, B Corporations are mission-driven companies, and these are a few examples, but really around applying the power of business for social and civic impact. Some B Corporations you might have heard of include Ben & Jerry's, Patagonia, Etsy, Dansko, and others. So we feel lucky to be part of a great group of folks. The part of how we express our social mission, which is around applying geospatial technology for civic and social impact, includes picking and choosing projects that specifically represent that focus. We donate a share of our profits each year to nonprofit organizations. We run a program called Summer of Maps, which is around matching up students studying geographic data analysis with nonprofits who have interesting data sets and good questions. We enable our staff to dedicate 10% of their time for research and learning. We have a number of academic collaborations. We release a lot of our work under open source licenses, and we're big promoters of open source, open data. Most of our work is organized around land, water, and people. I'll walk through a few examples of this. This is a broad range of things, all of which has some civic or social impact component to it. From historic information, like historic photos in this Philly History Project that supports the city archives, to a project called Visualizing Emancipation, which looks at emancipation events during the Civil War and enables historians to visualize the juxtaposition of emancipation events against Union Army movements through the South. To elections and redistricting. This is a open redistricting application called District Builder for engaging the public in the legislative redistricting process, which we've used to run public competitions. To work with the Nature Conservancy around coastal resilience. To projects in New York City around inventorying street trees and assessing their ecosystem services value. This is a street tree census run by New York City Parks and Recreation called Trees Count. We do a lot of work related to water. It's a project funded by the National Science Foundation around stormwater modeling for students in middle school and high school, where they can learn about stormwater processes through a game. Online learning game. In addition to our software engineering work, building custom applications, we have a few software as a service products, including 3 of them, one around elections and legislative districts and finding legislative representatives. We support this in a number of different countries around the world, primarily for political advocacy purposes, supporting nonprofit organizations. Our second current product is called Open Tree Map around urban street tree inventory. This is around supporting in the United States alone, hundreds of millions of street trees and the large number of people that live in cities, and engaging citizens in helping them inventory what they have in their cities and the contributions those street trees provide to the general public. And this has interactive maps, calculates ecosystem services value. So what's a street tree worth from the perspective of energy conserved, stormwater infiltration, energy savings, air quality improvements, and so on. Zip through a few of these and some more advanced tools around prioritization and simulation modeling. This Open Tree Map software is an open source project that not only is used by folks who are using our version of it, but is also implemented by other cities around the world on their own. We also support a fair amount of research. One of our leading research projects is called GeoTrellis. This is supports the ability to do complex spatial data analysis with large data sets very rapidly. And one of the ways we do this is we are able to take big map data sets, break them up into many small parts, distribute the computation across many machines, and then reassemble that. And enables us to support things like the simulation and modeling work that I just mentioned about around urban forestry, doing things like civic games that I also mentioned earlier, but also interactively assessing the impact of sea level rise, doing things like economic development around business siting, sustainable transportation, efforts like working with very large data sets around climate change, and so on. I'd say the main characteristics of Asavia that separate us from other software companies are primarily around our focus on user experience design, data science, and high performance computing, working with global scale or national scale data sets in the cloud. So it's a very brief introduction to Asavia, and I zipped through a lot of that stuff very quickly, but wanted to open it up for questions.
Great, thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. Does anyone have an opening question?
It sounded to me like clearly you have a lot of different projects going and you're in a lot of different areas, sort of. How do you manage to keep all of those prioritized at the same time and level?
I think that's a great question. We've been around for a fair amount of time. We're a bootstrap business, so we don't have any investors. And diversity has been, at some level, certainly having a diverse set of projects could potentially be distracting, but for us, it's actually been a source of resilience and enabled us to weather economic downturns and other changes in the environment. We are organized into a number of different teams. Each of those teams has several projects that they oversee and pursue. Each team has some specialization, though they're broadly cross-functional. And we're able to allocate projects not across the whole company, but focused on a team of 3 to 7 people. We then have a set of support teams. One is around user experience design, and they support all of the other teams inside the company. And then a separate research team that focuses on building this GeoTrellis project that supports many of our projects. So we use a project management approach called Scrum that enables us to both take on multiple projects and then focus our efforts and reassess our priorities on a approximately every 2-week basis. That helps us both stay focused in any given period of time on a given team, as well as adapt to changing conditions as new projects come online and cycle off. Across the company, we're probably, I gave you a short introduction, but we're working on everything from homelessness to climate change, public safety, and a range of different things. At any given moment, there's probably a couple of dozen different projects going on, but they ebb and flow based on the timeline and schedule for the particular project.
Thank you.
And I have another question for you. I was just wondering what personally motivated you to start Asvia?
B Corporation?
Yeah, what personally motivated you to start the company?
I was bored with my job. I was not trained in computing. I was trained in landscape architecture and regional planning. Mm-hmm. That was my graduate degree. I had lived overseas in Japan for several years working in local government, came back to the States to study landscape architecture, and then caught an interest in computing and specifically in a technology called Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, while in school. And my first job out of school was to start a crime analysis and mapping unit for the Philadelphia Police Department. Mm-hmm. While I was there, it was an amazing job. It was both abstract and concrete. I mean, you knew every day how you were potentially impacting the safety of people in the city. But it was abstract in the sense that we needed to take a look at a global scale at what the structure and geographic distribution of crime was, and had high expectations in the sense that we had to learn a ton and teach ourselves a lot about how we could potentially do this job. The unit didn't exist until a couple of us were hired. So I got it was my first job where I sort of loved waking up in the morning. I never wondered why I was doing what I was doing. I cared deeply about the work, and I was challenged intellectually and technically every day.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't pay very well though, and I had student loans, and so I was there for a couple of years. Took the programming skills I developed there and turned that into a programming job with the city of Philadelphia. And there, while it was challenging and interesting, it was not nearly at the same level. And I was generally pretty bored by the work. I had wonderful colleagues, but the work itself was not terribly interesting. Mm-hmm. But I was able to pay off my loans, and so I wanted to get back to some combination of what I had been doing at the police department in terms of level of abstraction and technical challenge, as well as the kind of civic impact that we had there. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do that through a business. So I struggled with whether to start a for-profit or a nonprofit business for quite a while. And I ended up starting a for-profit business, not for any particularly good reason other than that I kind of understood how that happened. I would do some work and I would get paid for that work, and the business could operate on that basis. And I kind of didn't understand how nonprofits operated. Didn't understand how to make that work, and that didn't seem like a good approach. But from a mission or impact perspective, that was always, I wanted to have a mission-driven company. Mm-hmm. At the time, this was 2000 and 2001 time period, there wasn't such a thing as a B corporation or a benefit corp or L3C, and so we didn't do anything special to celebrate that or recognize it. But over time, I had really wanted to run a company that was run for the sake of a broader group of stakeholders than just myself. And so we progressively built an organization that was organized around what was going to be good and interesting and challenging for my colleagues, and what was going to be good and positive for the customers that we work with. So that has driven how we operate the company for the last 15 years. We continue to turn down work where we don't feel like it fits our mission. That feels pretty luxurious even today. And we continue to look out for and seek out projects where we feel like the technology we're working with is going to have an impact.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And does anyone else have any last minute questions for Robert?
Yeah, sure. I have one again. So first of all, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to share this wealth of knowledge and experience that you have with us. So I noticed on your partner's page that you work with Temple University, and as a university student, I was curious as to whether there were any characteristics of university that make them better to partner with for your particular mission, or if there are no differences at all really, and you just treat it as like another partner.
That's an interesting question. I think we've worked with universities in, I'd say, 3 different contexts. First, over the years, I have taught at universities, and I'm on advisory boards at universities. I think universities are terrific partners from that perspective, in the sense that it's an opportunity for us to give back and to help cultivate a new generation of people who are interested in similar things to what we are. So several of my colleagues also teach classes now, and that's an important area of partnership. The second is we run this Summer of Maps program that I mentioned earlier. And Summer of Maps connects students studying spatial analysis with nonprofits who have a mission-driven data science and data analysis questions they want to try to answer. And while students have been a critical component of that, universities have also been both financial and moral support for operating that program. We're just in our 5th year now, and if you know any nonprofits that are interested, we're accepting applications for nonprofits this year. This month through about the beginning of February. And then we'll be turning that back around and accepting applications for students who are interested in working on this project. The third area we've partnered with universities has been around research. So we've done a lot of work over the years around water, urban forestry, homelessness, public safety, and in many of the projects we've worked on, a university has been a key partner, either as a data provider, as a methodology, a place where methodologies get developed, and then we implement those methodologies as software, or in other ways. So in the Temple University case, for example, we've worked with the criminology and geography departments to partner on developing research grants. We've got funding together, and then they've developed crime risk forecasting methodologies that we've then gone and implemented as software, and then we've released together and supported together. So our best partnerships are those that combine a component of learning, research, and advancing the state of the art.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions before we let Robert go? No? Okay, well, thank you so much, Robert, for taking the time to talk to us. That was very interesting.
Right. Well, thank you for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I'll go back to sharing my screen now with everyone, guys. Okay. So next actually was Eric and Hannah. Do you guys want to go now? Would that work?
Would the other option be the introduction piece?
Yeah. It's up to you.
I have no problem going now. Eric?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay.
You want to share your screen or mine?
Would it automatically switch to yours when I speak, or does it not work that way?
What? No.
I don't think it works that way.
No.
Okay.
Just one of us puts up the PowerPoint.
Let's see. Share screen.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Great. So, yeah.
So
Eric.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. It's going to be difficult.
So Eric and I are both in the Millennium Campus Fellowship Program, where we learn about just lots of best practices for specifically working in nonprofit student organizations. And now we're going to talk about one of the things that we've learned in the fellowship that we thought was sort of relevant to tonight's topic, and that's partnership and paternalism when working with other groups.
Okay. Right. So we decided on this topic based off of the socially impactful technology. We discussed a specific example during one of our hub site meetings that involves helping people with technology, and it brought up this philosophical idea of partnership versus paternalism. And this is our paraphrased version of the situation we actually discussed in the hub site. So it says here, you work for an organization dedicated to bring technology to an underdeveloped region. You receive a $5,000 grant to assist with your work, so your organization decides to purchase iPads for children at the local school. However, when you return to the community a year after the donation, you discover that none of the iPads are being used, and even some of them have been sold. And you're generally surprised by the lack of appreciation for your donation. So this is the situation we dealt with.
That's just sort of an example of one of the ways that larger sort of charitable organizations might work with a partner, and we'll revisit that later, but just to define some things. So the main difference between a partnership and a paternalistic relationship is, in a partnership, ideally both the organization that's sort of the larger nonprofit and the person they're giving their services to are supposed to be on equal grounds. It's a conversation. In a paternalistic relationship, there's something called a giver-receiver dynamic, where one party is viewed as the giver, the larger donator, and the other is the receiver. And right off the bat, those two create very different dynamics between the two organizations, which make conversations very different depending.
Right. So just expanding on this giver-receiver dynamic, this dynamic is obviously problematic when trying to help people, and with the title alone, it kind of represents a power imbalance. So one party, the giver, possesses more money or resources than the other party, and is viewed as sustaining the other, which could be a problematic approach if you view it that way. And also with the receiver, it's viewed as the poor half of the partnership that reaps the benefits. So when you think of it that way, you it kind of leaves the field open for exploitation of the receiver and also objectification. Sammy discussed trying to alleviate the objectification with the homeless people she worked with. So this giver-receiver dynamic is often associated with a paternalistic relationship.
So more in depth on that. Paternalistic relationships almost always involve that sort of giver-receiver dynamic. And there are lots of problems with that. In that kind of a relationship, the receiver is sort of dependent on the giver, and they aren't really able to sustain themselves on their own. The giver also sort of will often not even on purpose, start to objectify the receiver and not view them as a separate person, but just sort of the idea of for helping these poor people. It's, the sort of thing that you'll see in all the sad donate money to these starving children in Africa commercials. And by that, so as that happens, one of the sort of side effects is that the giver may feel entitled to taking advantage of the receiver in that way, using the concept of, to follow the example, starving children in Africa, to advertise themselves or to make themselves seem morally upstanding. It just sort of opens the door to a lot of bad conversation. Additionally, if the giver sort of begins to view the receiver as less than human, there's the chance that the receiver won't even really be involved in the conversation when the giver is trying to help them. So they won't be asked about their needs. The giver will sort of just assume that they know what's best in the situation, which makes the partnership much less productive for everyone involved.
So what is obviously more ideal, and when juxtaposing partnership and paternalism, is partnership, and it does not contain ideally the giver-receiver dynamic. So partnership is rooted in both parties contributing something and mutual respect and working together towards a common goal without exploitation, without objectification for some sort of gain. And it is done best when there is an open conversation between the groups geared towards finding the best solutions to the problems. So, yes. So now relating back to the situation we presented.
Yeah, back to our iPad example from earlier. So it's kind of obvious that that's a more paternalistic relationship, and there are many reasons that you can see that happening. So the first and foremost thing is, if they're not using the iPads, the natural conclusion to draw is that they didn't really want the iPads in the first place, which sort of implies that the quote-unquote giver kind of assumed that it would be something they needed and didn't really ask them, oh, is there any other more productive thing that we could do with this $5,000 grant that would help you guys more? So there are lots of reasons that that might be able to happen, relating to maybe the culture of the community. Also, if it's a low resource community, maybe no one knows how to use the iPads. Maybe they can't keep them charged. There's a lot of reasons that it just might not have been right for them. But what happened was the giver assumed that they knew what was best, rather than creating an open conversation and recognizing that the receiver is the person that best knows their own needs.
Yeah, and especially with technology, like with the iPads, I think it's entirely possible that the giver in this situation or similar situations can often be more enthusiastic about the technology that they're creating or trying to provide in general, and might overlook the needs of those in need. So relating this back to best practices, these are some ideas that were presented to us in the partnership in the fellowship about partnership. So the first thing is to have clear expectations from both parties by adopting a shared vision and maintaining good communication procedures. A great way of doing this that we discussed was I hope I pronounced this correctly, memorandum of understanding. ChangeFire, which I work for, has definitely used those, and there are other options as well. It's important to know that donations without a purpose or without a cause can be unhelpful and actually hurtful, and can actually take resources away from the people in need. And last thing is that it's important that partnerships become more balanced without the giver-receiver relationship, and this allows for both partners to become stronger in articulating their needs and what they both can offer. So that's also important.
Yeah, really the main thing is just that communication is between the two parties is very key. We, with my student organization, Engineers Without Borders, what our general sort of mission statement is to make engineering solutions to problems found in this one community in Alusia that we work in. And before we start a project, we don't really think of any of the ideas on our own. We'll go in to Nalusia and we'll talk to the leaders of the village and ask, what do you guys actually want? What would help you? And then decide based on that. So as long as you can keep sort of that open dialogue, that's really the main thing for creating an equal balanced partnership.
Yeah, and that's the presentation. That's all.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions.
Great. Thank you so much for that, guys. That was super, super helpful. Does anyone have any questions for them? Any questions?
Julian?
Julian, any thoughts?
Great job, guys. That was awesome. I think this is a very important topic to discuss. It's a lot harder to put into practice. I feel like a lot of times I catch myself being overly ambitious or getting swept away by like really good marketing from companies.
I felt like we were in a way being like the naysayers with this presentation in the context of the discussion, but it is important.
In the chat,
Yeah.
I'm a sophomore at Boston University, and the organization I work for is Engineers Without Borders, which is we are a student chapter of the national organization that works in low-resource communities across the world, creating solutions to whatever sort of problems they have. And I can go more into detail on the actual projects we're doing if you want, but if not, I won't.
Alex?
And I'm from Tufts University, and I am on the executive board of this relatively small and new student group called Changefire that we just spearhead service projects. Mainly they've been in Latin America so far. But we're hoping to expand, and we're excited about the future.
No.
Close.
Sorry.
Great. Thanks, guys. And yeah, I definitely agree with what you said about, and what Sammy was saying about not telling people what they need, but actually asking them. And I think that for AslyumConnect, that was definitely part of our needs assessment, with interviewing the actual people that we're attempting to help. And I think that was incredibly useful and valuable, and actually changed some of what we thought. So thank you for bringing that up. I think it goes really well with the topic.
Yeah. Sorry, if you don't mind, you're just jumping in. I don't know if you guys know, but Raina shared an article about kind of just reducing people's issues. It kind of ties into paternalism, but I'm going to try to dig through my Facebook feed and share it on this group chat. I think it's kind of relevant and interesting. So keep an eye out for that.
Great. Sounds good. So I can go back to sharing my screen now. So that's actually all of our guest speakers for today. So now I will share my screen and go back. 1 second. Can everyone see it now? Yeah? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the agenda, it's always a little bit, it moves around a little bit for the webinars, so kind of just play it by ear. But so we'll go through it. We didn't actually introduce the concept, so if you guys want, I can either, so if we go back, I can either talk about socially impactful technology, and I was going to give a brief overview. Not everyone knows what that means. There's things of different things. And then I was going to go a little bit into how AslyumConnect tries to use socially impactful technology and why I chose that webinar topic. So keep going. So what is socially impactful technology? When I Googled it, and when I think of it, I definitely hear different definitions, but these are some of the things that kind of stood out to me as common themes. So that, as you can see, technology for good, using technology to further the greater good, open source technology, which is Robert touched upon a little bit, is definitely something in the tech sector that a lot of people push toward, as technology for good. And then technology, as we all know, has really been used to improve across all sectors, including education, healthcare, national defense, poverty. And of course, there are a wide array of exciting forms of technology, including computers, mobile apps, games, online databases, and software. So how exactly is technology doing good? I just kind of outlined some interesting technology systems to me that I think are doing a lot of good. So as we've all heard of information technology, so crowdsourcing. So I think that's very relevant, again, to Hand Up. So Hand Up is really crowdsourcing for the homeless community, and it's done extraordinarily well, as you've heard from Sammy. And then medical technology, that's the picture that I have on the right there. Robotic surgery it also just diagnosis and operations of chemotherapy and other surgeries has really drastically improved with putting technology to the medical sector. And then also assistive technology, so hearing aids, innovative eyewear, the intelligent medication dispensers that will remind patients to take medicine, so improving compliance, which is really important. And then lastly, one of my topics was waste management technology, so improving the planet and actually turning waste into a sustainable resource. So again, there are many ways I'm sure that you could think of that technology does good in the world, but those are just some of the striking ways that I thought of. And then again, so technology is always on the rise, and so now an estimated 5 billion people will use mobile phones by 2017, which I think is kind of a very interesting statistic and really puts into perspective how powerful technology can be. And then this is just a quote that I thought was really interesting and relevant to today's conversation. So I can read it as you read along with me. One of the most exciting and crucial elements of this unfolding storyline is the fact that this technological impact is reaching some of the most remote and impoverished areas of the world. Marginalized populations are being granted increasing access to many of the life-saving and life-improving services in previously out-of-reach areas, such as healthcare, information technology, and finance. And so Wired Magazine said that. But I really wanted to harken back to this question of what will we do with this newfound power of technology and connectivity. I think it's a really good question when I was reading that article. And I think that it really relates to the paternalism conversation of is increasing access to technology actually a good thing? And how do we ensure that that's actually being productive and not harming people? So that's one of the questions that I thought we might discuss. And so I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that. If you guys have any other thoughts, I know we just touched upon it a little bit with the paternalism talk, but anyone have any reactions to that question or to my definition of socially impactful technology?
Just technology in general with social impact. It's like a double-edged sword because it can, in one hand, be sort of used imperialistically in a way towards like dominating cultures, get even more power because they can distribute it through technology. But it also gives people a voice that didn't in the past and empowers people at the same time. So.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. That's a double-edged sword. It's both dangerous and then it could also be very powerful. So I think a good example again is Hand Up. So she said, the enabling the homeless community to then actually have conversations with their donors and have follow-up conversations. I think is a really good example of what you were just saying about it connecting people and letting their voices be heard. So yeah, thank you. Anyone have any other thoughts about that question? I know it's a big question to digest.
Yeah, I think actually it ties back into the partnership versus paternal relationship question. And I think that, if it's a partnership, it can do a lot of good, but if it's not, there is the potential for damage.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Alex. So I think that's just a really good question to have in mind for this topic. So if anyone else has any other thoughts as we go, feel free to stop me and just you can raise your hand using the button that we all discussed before. You can just unmute yourself and go ahead and talk. And then I guess the structure is a little bit off right now, but I was going to ask if anyone had any reactions to Sammy's presentation, and we can actually do all the presentations at once. If anyone has any burning reactions to Sammy or Robert's presentations or the best practice session, or any like key takeaways from that. I know there's a lot said.
I thought Sammy's presentation was really, really interesting and inspiring, especially hearing, because sometimes with people who have these great ideas or who become very successful, you don't always know where they started or like where the idea came from. But I feel like she did a really good job in her presentation of showing you the genesis of her career, and in doing so showed the genesis of like the idea for Hand Up. And I thought that was really powerful because it's just interesting to know like how people come up with these really innovative ideas.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. Thank you. Any other reactions?
I mean, it's kind of an obvious one, but I thought I don't know, I was very inspired just by the fact that she sort of had the drive to go and do this so soon out of school. I thought it was.
Yeah, it's very inspiring, very motivating. One of the reasons why I asked her to be a guest speaker. I think it's a great example of putting your mind to something and really taking an idea and doing something really innovative in the sense that both Robert and Sammy started, one of the reasons why I asked them here today was they started B Corps. And so B Corp, as they said, is like using business to do good. And I think it's a really, really cool, innovative example. And I think it's where the future of like even of social impact is really going. So I thought it was really cool to hear from them. Any other reactions before we move on?
Is it all right if we just take a moment to backtrack a little? I was like,
yeah.
I actually was reading something just the other day, and I wrote down little thoughts on sticky notes. Do you have the slide with your question on it about like
me? Yeah. Let me try to go back right here.
Yeah. Okay. So not to get too philosophical, but I'm just like throwing thoughts out that I took notes on.
No, go for it. Yeah.
So yeah, with the growth in like tech innovation, there's a lot of new challenges, and like this newfound connectivity is creating both like harm and good, and it seems like one advantage of this new connectivity is the ability or the innate interdependence, and I don't know if that's something we can leverage. And also this person brought up the point that we are kind of disseminating knowledge, and new innovations are getting into the hands of more people, and sometimes these technologies are destructive, and the issue isn't that we're transferring knowledge. The issue is that we're not transferring wisdom.
Okay.
And wisdom is the capacity to realize what is of value to oneself and others. So it seems like the global dispersion is obviously, like you said, inevitable, and it is bringing a lot of issues. But it sounds like from these people, these guest speakers, that we can actually utilize this transfer, both like technical knowledge as well as wisdom, whatever that means to you. So I'm not even sure if that's coherent, but
no.
it reminded me of this, so yeah.
No. Thank you for that. No, I definitely agree. If you even think about like social media and just go on your Facebook feed, like some people will post like articles with substance, and then others will be like, like inside jokes with people. And how do you like decipher between like quality and just, just using technology for the sake of using technology? I think it's a good question. I think that, definitely. Mm-hmm. Anyone else have any thoughts on Julian's comments? No, not for now. Okay, well, I'm sure you guys will think of something, and when that happens, just feel free to unmute yourself. But I'll keep going. Okay, so I just had a slide about Hand Up, just again because I think the model is really interesting. So they're a B Corp, public benefit corporation, and then their model, I think that it's worth pointing out in terms of if you're trying to build socially impactful technology, that it skillfully, the last bullet point, integrates the community through involving community partners. I just thought when I read their model in these 4 steps, it's like so simple, but it's so well done, and it's very sustainable. So as you can see, like 4 steps: members indeed sign up via community partners, donors contribute directly to member goals, members redeem donations for basic needs, and then they send member updates. And I think they're really like personalizing the fundraising platform for homeless people. I know a lot of people that won't give on the street to homeless people because they're just not sure of where that money will actually be going to. And through involving the community partners and working with them and making sure that the homeless people are going to community partners and then using the money for what they say they're going to use it for, I think is just a really, really, really good idea. And I think that could really be applied to a lot of different populations. So when I saw them, I was very impressed. And as you can see, I'm like a big fan of them. So I was just excited to hear from her. Does anyone else have any comments for the Hand Up? Yep.
Yeah, I had a comment. I think it's awesome how they send member updates and how that was
Yeah.
like an integral part, because I know I can't remember her name, but I think it was the girl who was the speaker who worked at Google.
Yeah,
I think
Mackenzie.
talked a lot about that, and so
Yeah.
did the other speaker in that webinar.
Cheryl.
Um,
Yeah.
yes, and how like important it is to engage with people during your campaign, and in this case, it's donors.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just such a great part of their organization that you can kind of follow up with in a very specific way the people that they donate to.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Like the benefit of seeing people as people and not just like it all feeds back into the paternalism comments about not viewing people as objects, but remembering that they're human beings with like real feelings and goals, and that you can contribute to them. And I think I don't know. I think it's also a very interesting platform in terms of if you guys heard it, and I knew this because I read about Hand Up before. I'd heard about them a couple of months ago. But they make money through when people donate, they ask for an optional tip for operational expenses. And I think it's just like amazing that I think she said they have a 98% tip rating. I mean, that's just like, that's pretty cool. I mean, like that's kind of a revenue model that like if someone were to tell me that, like I don't know if I would think that was the most sustainable thing, like an optional tip thing. And obviously they probably get like other donations, but I'm pretty sure that's their main mechanism of raising money. And so I just think it's really cool that that's working. And in terms of innovation, I've never heard of anything that does that. So yeah. But we can keep going. So yeah, reactions, presentations, already did that. So yeah, now I was going to talk a little bit about how does AslyumConnect harness the power of technology. So again, I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with AslyumConnect. We're down to 4 participants. So again, it's like a small circle. So if I'm going too fast, or if you have specific questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. But Alex is the secretary for AslyumConnect, so he's very familiar. Julian is also very familiar. So basically, Hannah and Eric, if you have questions about AslyumConnect, I will be happy to answer them. But again, we're right now a volunteer initiative that's trying to help LGBT asylum seekers in the U.S. connect with life-saving online informational resources. And I'll go through some of the things that we do. So the first, I think that right now we're trying to use technology to raise awareness. So that's right now we're trying to launch the Shadows Speak Up Instagram campaign to do that. And so what is the Shadows Speak Up Instagram campaign? So it's a 2-week campaign designed to raise awareness for LGBT asylum seekers. And we're basically just asking people on Instagram to post a picture of your shadow on Instagram with the hashtag #ShadowSpeakUp, and then your thoughts on why our campaign is important. So why is it important to hear from LGBT asylum seekers, respect their opinion, really get the word out? And the shadows concept, I think, is an interesting story. It was actually the idea of my co-founder, who was actually an LGBT asylum seeker himself. So me and him, we started AslyumConnect going into our senior year at Penn in July of 2014. And so he came to me with the idea because from his personal experience seeking asylum in the United States, he really wanted to give back to this community. And so we started the initiative. But the Shadows idea is because when you arrive to the United States as an LGBT asylum seeker, you're still very much in the shadows. It's a very unknown population. A lot of people don't know what an asylum seeker is, let alone an LGBT asylum seeker. So our concept really, it allows LGBT asylum seekers to participate in our campaign through protecting their confidentiality, because a lot of them, it's still dangerous, to post your face on social media, while also letting other allies and people that want to show solidarity with this population contribute in a very easy action step. So, I mean, I'm very excited about the Shadows campaign, and you can participate, again, through just posting a picture of your shadow with the hashtag, or sending your submissions to our social media manager, and her email is on the screen. You can also follow us on Instagram. And then this is on the right, the picture is a graphic designed by an organization at Northwestern University that we work with right now. And that's just a quote from me, actually, of why I think it's important. So I'd love to answer questions about the Instagram campaign. And if not, I will talk about the catalog. Anyone have any? It's pretty self-explanatory, but.
I actually have questions. Surprise.
Yeah.
So, is it correct that you guys partnered with the public policy team at Instagram?
Yeah, so we have a contact with the Instagram public policy team. Someone reached out to me and asked if they said we should launch a campaign to this effect because no one's talking about LGBT asylum seekers. So the Instagram public policy team, basically what they do is that they talk to organizations that they identify to have a really interesting global cause, because actually the Instagram platform, I think, is 70% global. So the minority is actually US users. And they told us to, create a campaign that they would work with us to kind of shape the content of the campaign. Unfortunately, they don't have it's not much outreach in the sense that they don't have an Instagram public policy team account. So it's more of the idea, and then what platforms on Instagram can you use, and what kind of things have been successful in the past. So yeah, it's been really interesting. We're trying to get the word out about it. I wrote an article in the Huffington Post about it. And then, we're still going, and it'll end on the 29th, but we hope that even when the official campaign ends, that we'll still, people will still be posting these shadow pictures. I just think it's a very worthy cause, and it's not getting enough recognition. And I think it's powerful because people, it's an intriguing concept. And if you start to hear about what an LGBT asylum seeker is and what they've gone through, I think that it's one way to get not only awareness out, but to get people to support AslyumConnect, because it's such a important population that not many organizations are directly serving. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. I remember reading that word, the public policy team.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they did. I've never heard of them, but
Yeah.
yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, just raising awareness and getting people to think that, for many, their sexuality makes them a target for hateful or hurtful or violent actions. So I'm excited about it too.
Yeah.
Posting a picture. So.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone post your shadows. Yeah.
I feel like that's an interesting thing to photograph. I've never tried to photograph.
Right? I know. When I tried to do it, I was luckily I was in Arizona, so it was quite bright. So my shadow was epic because it was very dark.
I imagine mine would be this awkward body form.
Yeah, I've seen really interesting ones. People were posting group shadow pictures, which I thought was really cool and interesting. So people have done really cool things. And we have one that I really like of a 31-year-old asylum seeker from Jamaica, and he did it, and it's pretty dark. It also almost looks like a painting, but it's a real shadow picture from Jamaica. And it's pretty cool. So
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
What's the symbolism behind the shadow itself?
Yeah, so again, my co-founder Saeed, who went through this experience, he thought of shadows. Shadows is it's kind of two-layered. So the first layer would be that when you come to the U.S. and you're an LGBT asylum seeker, and no one's really thinking about you, no one's really talking about you, you're really in the shadows in a lot of ways, in terms of just meeting your basic human needs, in terms of community, in terms of not knowing anyone. There's all of these factors. And the other sense was that we wanted a campaign concept that was very open, and it would be able to, people that are asylum seekers, but also non-asylum seekers, could comfortably contribute to. So the shadows concept lets asylum seekers contribute if they want, because it hides their identity and it protects their confidentiality. Because a lot of the times, even when an LGBT asylum seeker is arriving in the US, a lot of them do have social media accounts and do have technology, but it's also very dangerous for them to post their picture sometimes online. So we wanted an action step that they could comfortably participate in, and that was respectful of that confidentiality. But that was also kind of a manifestation of what it's actually like to be an asylum seeker. So the hashtag Shadows Speak Up is saying that they're in the shadows, but that doesn't mean just because they can't show their face doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be heard. That's kind of how I think of it.
Right.
So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Yeah, so these are example shadow pictures that I was talking about before. So the one on the left is the asylum seeker. So again, it kind of looks like a painting to me, but it's a real picture. The one in the middle is me, my shadow. And the one on the right is another person that we got a shadow submission. So as you can see, the shadow picture is really open-ended, and it's pretty easy. It takes 2 seconds to do. My shadow picture took me 2 seconds, and then I posted. So I think that's another strength of it, the concept is the easiness, and that anyone can really participate. So, okay, and the second way that we use technology, or trying to at AslyumConnect, is as a mechanism for social impact. It's a little bit more to do with what we've heard from the guest speakers. So not only to raise awareness, this is our main project. So the AslyumConnect Catalog 2.0 is our main project. And so what is that? Well, I was going to go a little bit into the cause, just if people aren't aware of the situation, I think it helps. So just very quickly, this is a statistic about 2.79 billion people still live in countries where being gay can lead to prison or death. So I think that's a very striking statistic to keep in mind. And then this is an infographic. I apologize for the text. When I put it in Google Slides, it kind of ruined the text, but just briefly, so what is an asylum seeker? So an LGBT asylum seeker is someone that's arriving in the US because they've been persecuted based on their sexual orientation in their country. So the top home countries that they're coming from to the US is Russia, Jamaica, and Mexico. And there are approximately 300,000 LGBT asylum seekers living in the US. So AslyumConnect is working with this population. They're working with mostly the people that are coming from the 77 countries where it is still legal to be gay. And again, when you arrive as an asylum seeker, you can't work, you don't usually know anyone, there's usually grave emotional trauma that comes with that persecution. So again, it's a very vulnerable population. That's kind of why I asked Sammy about piloting a technology platform for a very vulnerable population, because again, AslyumConnect, I think, is really good in the sense that our co-founder actually went through this experience himself. We have 2 advisors. We have an LGBT refugee, Subi Nahas, on our advisory board, and we also have Jack Lorenzar, who was the first lesbian from Mexico to receive asylum in the U.S. So we have those perspectives, and I think, again, like when we were building the organization, I thought it was really, really important that those perspectives were represented. And Alex, you can jump in at any time too, because he's the secretary, so he knows a lot. So, but we'll go from here. So what do? So our main service is the AslyumConnect Catalog. So the AslyumConnect Catalog 1.0 is what we launched at first. And it was after all of our needs assessment. We talked to people. The Millennium Campus Network, they gave us $5,000. We just got an additional $15,000. But with that, we wanted to kind of turn our vision of creating the first online centralized database of service providers useful to LGBT asylum seekers in the U.S. into reality. So the catalog, it currently lists medical, social, counseling, legal, and other services that we verify to be both LGBT friendly and asylum friendly. We're piloting currently in Seattle. And on the right is what it currently looks like on our website. So right now it's very, very basic, but we wanted to get something out there because it's a time-sensitive issue. Nothing like this exists. So in Seattle, so that's just an example resource. So the basic premise is you would click on the resource, filter by subcategories, find the resource that you're looking for, and then you click on it and it'll expand into more information. Description, population served, address, hours, phone number, website. It also says translation services. But, and this is yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was just going to talk really quick about the verification process. So when we first started looking up resources, we weren't exactly sure how we were going to be able to verify that these services would be both LGBT friendly as well as asylum seeker friendly. And our director of catalog, Emma, came up with a really, really good, thorough process, but also easy process where each of the resources we found to list in our catalog, we have to show several pieces of like evidence or documentation of the fact that they are open for business, that they're LGBT friendly, and that they're asylum seeker friendly. And things like that could include a phone call made to them, an email replied from them, or even a social media presence where they like celebrated Pride or things like that. So so in terms of Seattle, we've tried to do a really good job of making, without being on the ground ourselves, trying to verify that these are resources we'd feel comfortable sending people to.
Thank you for that, Alex. Yeah, that's an important piece. Definitely the verification model. We get a lot of questions about that. And I think one of the great things about Emma's new model was that it requires people when they're verifying resources to upload documentation of each criteria so that we have, proof that we actually went through the work and did verify the resource. So we actually made the conscious decision that we are relaunching the catalog in February 11th. And we made the conscious decision that we would much rather have, less resources collected and listed in our catalog that we're sure was high quality, because I think that's another really big consideration with the vulnerable population. So yeah, thanks Alex for that. That was helpful.
And the other part of documenting the verification is they all have expiration dates. And
Yeah, so
so
every 2 years.
yeah.
Mhm.
So everything will get re-verified in 2 years because a lot of things can close or
Yeah.
organizations change.
Yep. And in terms of what they were saying also, like about getting feedback from beneficiaries who are actually using your service. So the AslyumConnect Catalog 2.0, we're definitely going to we have a disclaimer on our site, but we're also going to have, I'm planning to do like a different web page or page on our website that will specifically say, you know, if you have feedback, let us know. And then the AslyumConnect Catalog 2.0, we're recruiting test users for that. We want to work directly with the population, with both LGBT asylees who've actually been through the process, like would this be helpful, and both LGBT and LGBT asylum seekers who are using the catalog, and you know what problems do they have and how can we improve that. So this is just a quote taken from one of the first people we helped, Tom. So a 31-year-old LGBT asylum seeker from Jamaica. This is just what he said on the impact of the catalog 1.0. So as you can see, it's very simple, but for his life, like it still makes a big difference. So he said, "Thank you so much. I was trying to gather information such as yours, but this is the most comprehensive I've ever read." And so for me, like this quote is very motivating because again, it's very simple right now on our website. And I just kind of think like what an impact we can have on all of these 300,000 LGBT asylum seekers when we do improve the catalog, do introduce new functions and new cities and do scale up. So it was exciting for me to hear that. So now me and Alex and the entire AslyumConnect team are really excited about the Catalog 2.0. So the focus on the Catalog 2.0 was new search functions and improved visuals. And it's going to go live for Seattle on February 11th, 2016. On the right is just a picture, but I'm going to go into it in more detail. So this is a picture of the future landing page for the catalog. So this is the landing page that we envision when we do scale up, when we do add more cities. So as you can see, it's just a map of the United States, and you would be able to click on your city. So I really like that representation. And then this, it's still in progress. Our Director of User Experience Software Development, Tiff, is still working on it, but she has some nice mock-ups that I thought would be interesting to share with everyone. So once the user selects a city on our website, they'll land on this landing page. And so as you can see, and we'll say what types of services are you looking for. The subcategories just look so much better. She incorporated icons, and then we tried to use a lot simpler language because while most asylum seekers that do reach the United States do speak English, sometimes it's broken English, it's very elementary English. So we wanted to give people just the easiest possible without having full translation capacity, and that's something that we're definitely building on. And a future goal is translation capacity for the entire website. But I think this is it's just so much easier to navigate than the AslyumConnect Catalog 1.0. And when you look at both of them, I think it's a big, big improvement. And so we also added another question, what additional features are important to you? And they're just optional. You can answer confidential, free, language translation available. Does the resource, the provider that we're recommending, have the translation capacity? I think that's a really good question. We'll keep going. And so, yeah, this is just a breakdown of the new improved subcategories that we feel will make it easier for users to find the resources they are looking for. Bearing in mind, again, that they're maybe limited English and trying to put the pictures in there and doing different subcategories. But I think the subcategories also kind of speaks to our vision of trying to help LGBT asylum seekers meet all of their basic human needs. So not just shelter. It's really trying to give a holistic approach of if I was a person and I was coming to a country and I was being persecuted and I didn't know anyone, what would I need? And so obviously they need legal services, but that's really the majority of direct services available to them right now is just legal services. And of course, if you're a person, you need more than legal services, right? You need housing and food, medical, educational. You're going to want to have community support and counseling. So it's just a breakdown of the subcategories. And then I was just going to go through like what will happen. So for instance, a user will select mental health and then they'll select support groups. So then on this website, it'll again go to a specific resource and it'll have more information. And again, it will expand with additional information that we think from talking to people will be really helpful. So population served, mailing address, phone numbers, helpline, email, translation services along with the icon and a map. I think that the map is really, really helpful because I've gotten actual emails from LGBT asylum seekers that have used our site in the past and actually said, I couldn't find the physical location because, you know, it can be a nightmare if you don't know the city, to find it. So I think that's really important. And then just breaking down the information from a resources website into these very specific and easy to read categories, I think is really helpful, given the translation capacity. Because honestly, when you're collecting these basic information from some of the resources websites, it's actually not that hard. I mean, not that easy to find. So, so I mean, that was my breakdown of AslyumConnect and what are we doing and why I picked socially impactful technology. Again, we're very excited to launch that on February 11th. So, I mean, I'd love to answer any questions, or if you guys have any follow-up discussion points for the other presentations, love to hear it.
Well, first of all, I think it's really great what you're doing. I think.
Thank you.
But how do you manage to get the word out about yourself? I mean, if you're just coming to the country, how do you manage to even reach those people in the first place?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. So how we get the word out, I was surprised by the number of LGBT asylum seekers who actually did have a social media presence. So I think that for us, it's really important to have that Facebook page, to have the Instagram account, to also publish in some LGBT-friendly publications. So I was connected with one asylum seeker who read an article I wrote for The Advocate, for example, and that's how he heard about AslyumConnect. Also, partnership is really, really crucial in like a niche industry like this one. So legal providers, for instance, like Immigration Equality, it's the biggest LGBT immigration law firm in the country. So they have a lot of contacts. They'll get tons of emails from people looking for help when they do come to the U.S. because they're gay. And so referrals, I think, is really important. So we're trying to build upon that as well. So yeah, I'd say partnership, social media, as well as just publishing articles. I think we've been really, really good about having a media presence. My co-founder, again, he has had a very interesting personal story to tell. And I think that it's something that has helped us attract attention. And we also just talk about it to everyone. So, but yeah, it's a good question. Outreach is definitely really, really important. And so, and I can actually talk a little bit about in Seattle. So obviously I don't live in Seattle. So how are we getting the word out? One of our advisors lives in Seattle, luckily, and works with this population on a daily basis. And then as well, we're also trying to publish newspaper advertisements in local cultural newspapers in different languages, as well as having a flyer that we've translated in a bunch of different languages and having placed in public spaces so that asylum seekers will look at it and find out about AslyumConnect and maybe sign on to be a test user, as well as partnering with and getting the word out and emailing a lot of providers that we have verified and that do meet our criteria, because a lot of the times the providers won't be LGBT asylum seeker specific, right? Because there's not many of them. They might be LGBT specific. They might even be open to everyone, but we verified them that they can actually serve this population. So those are other providers that we're emailing our flyers to and being like, hey, can you help me? And then publishing in places like the Seattle Times. I get emails from people that want to get involved, and it's great to have on-the-ground support in Seattle. So, yeah, that's a good question, though. Outreach, definitely key and tricky, but key. Any other thoughts or questions?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. So it's also how, I don't know, ever since we were little, I feel like when you think about what basic human needs are, all you think about are words like cold and hungry. And this is not your main objective, obviously, or maybe it is, but it's that your catalog also in a way redefines what basic human needs includes. The fact that you have mental health on there and legal services, I think that's really cool. So
thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think that again is really important, because before I started this project, I would have probably put food and shelter as the main things. A lot of people, though, if you talk to providers, and one of our advisors actually, I mean, he is the expert in refugee law and policy, but if you ask him what's the most important thing, he says a lawyer for an LGBT asylum seeker, because you need a lawyer in order to stay in the country and not go back to where you may be killed. And I was like, fair point. But he definitely agrees. You also need, food, housing, but also we work with the United Nations Universalist office, and they said they were really big in community support. They really, really said mental health for this population is just so important, and being integrated into the community and because you're going from a place where you were not safe and did not feel comfortable and had to hide your identity into a place that hopefully is a lot better, but not perfect. And you need to be able to have that community support. So I honestly think that down the line, I'd love to have like a mentorship program somehow be integrated into AslyumConnect, where you're matching LGBT asylees with asylum seekers. So again, asylees have received legal status. Asylum seekers are still seeking it, and it can actually take years to receive asylum. So I think that would be really, really helpful, just from what I've heard from providers and LGBT asylum seekers themselves, that emotional support and that emotional connection. And again, just not knowing that they're not alone. I think Hand Up touched on that as well. And like homeless LGBT youth, like when she talked about the statistic of 29% of LGBT youth are homeless in San Francisco, I thought that was really interesting from my perspective. So, yeah. Any other thoughts, guys? Or you guys can talk a little bit more about your organizations. I know I just ranted on about AslyumConnect, but
I was going to just talk about the importance of the Instagram account really quick.
Yeah, go for it, Alex. Thank you.
I don't know if other people have noticed this, but in the national conversation currently, there's a really big debate about immigration and refugees.
I know.
I feel like this issue has kind of come to the forefront, but it's not LGBTQ specific whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so I feel like our Instagram account, in addition to bringing awareness to our catalog and advertising the catalog, I feel like it's also just a really good tool to get the cause more notice.
Yeah.
Given that there's so much like rhetoric about refugees and immigration right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I view AslyumConnect as interesting in terms of we're taking two kind of like politically charged issues, and then you have the LGBT issue, but you also have the immigration issue. People have very strong opinions about both of those issues. And I think that, yeah, what you're saying is completely true. No one's talking about gay immigration, as well as I think it's just like a healthy thing for people to see about immigration that are just against it. That, again, these are real people. You need to, think about, the anti-immigration rhetoric before you, spout forth information. And like what you're saying about substance, Julian, like or wisdom versus just everything else filtering your news feed. So yeah, I definitely agree with you, Alex. That was definitely one of our main priorities for the Instagram account, was to raise awareness for LGBT asylum seekers and just the LGBT community in the immigration field at large, including refugees, which are different than asylum seekers. But yeah. Other thoughts before? I see it's 10:52, so we have like 8 minutes. But that was all I was gonna talk about. I'm trying to think of my other thoughts. I had a lot of thoughts, but rant on. What was I gonna say? I don't know. Do you guys have any other questions about AslyumConnect? No.
I think that was a really great forum, and I know it's late over there on the East Coast, so wrapping this up a little bit early doesn't.
Yeah.
I know you guys
Wonderful.
have school tomorrow for some people, so
Yeah.
I just thank you for facilitating this, and
Yeah, thanks for your help too.
the awesome speakers, and also a big thank you to Alex for always showing up and taking notes and contributing.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, the fellows,
Anytime.
you guys are awesome. It's a great crew. This is a great, small and very, very thorough. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and thank you to both Hannah and Eric as well for your presentation. Appreciate that. Hopefully you'll join us in next month.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Katie, what's next month?
Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's set. Sorry. I was like about to say it, and I was like, I'm not confident that I know that
It is, and I know that it's very interesting.
it'll be wonderful. I hope so. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pulling it up right now. Okay. Oh, it's
Okay.
working with underserved populations. How to be conscious
Okay.
of vulnerabilities within a community.
So related to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely stay tuned for that, guys.
Yeah. We'll be getting an email shortly with a feedback survey. It'd be awesome if you could fill it out. I hope to see you guys and talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.